No, it's all of our lives.
Oh, look at your background. That's
Yeah,
so
I mean, we're here to talk about 15 years of Wanderlust.
cool.
So,
Let me forward this email it back to Rik and Diego. Make sure that they have not misplaced it. All right, and come on. There we go. Good to see you, man.
yeah, you too. How you been, other than 2020?
Yeah, we can hit the skip button. We've been very fortunate in 2020. We've not had anyone sick. We've not lost anybody. We've not lost our careers and jobs and things like that. So we've been managing.
That's great. I appreciate you doing this with me today.
For sure.
It's I one of the things I launched my newsletter, Michael's Record Collection, and the idea is that I want to be able to spotlight music that I find interesting that a lot of people might not know about, but also I'll probably be doing some reviews of some of the bigger releases as well. But one thing that I always like to do is to look back at albums that have big anniversaries coming up, and I think 15 years is a long time to. I mean, first of all, it was shocking that it was 15 years, but the fact that it's 15 years of an album is a long shelf life to look back and kind of take a look at where it came from and the genesis of it and everything.
Yeah. Hard to believe I had not been keeping track how long ago it was until you kind of like, hey, it's been 15 years. Like, no.
Yeah. I was surprised too, because it's it doesn't seem that long ago now to me that I started doing my radio show in 2004, and I've stopped doing it in 2014. So it's actually been 6 years since Epic Prog was on the air, and it seems like a blink of the eye.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Rik and Diego turn up, but I guess we can just go ahead and jump in, and then they can join in, if and when they arrive, if that's okay with you.
Fair enough. If I ran my clocks by their clocks, I probably would be late to a lot of things too. So
exactly. So I wanted to start out by asking you about the obviously Wanderlust was one of my picks for a top 10 album in 2005, back when I was doing my radio show, and this is the third release from Little Atlas on Prog Rock Records in 2005, mixed and recorded at Encanta Productions and Hip Cat Studios in Miami. I couldn't find anything about Hip Cat Studios. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that was my project studio that evolved into a I don't know if you call it went beyond what project studios are, but it's where we did all of the drum recording, and that's where I did all my pieces and parts. And then we did quite a bit at Rik's recording studio, and he worked at Encanta. He was a production engineer there. That was his job. And so when we had a chance to mix it in a quote real studio with a quote real engineer, made a lot of sense. So Rik has mixed all of our albums.
Now, I know that you hesitate a little to call it the third album from Little Atlas because of how different the first album, Neverworldly, was.
Yep.
What do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like that was a whole different thing on Neverworldly?
Yeah, I do. I feel like that album was, I mean, it was not. It is just so different from everything after it. It was different musicians, of course. That's why it's partially different. It was written without. I don't know. I had not found my place yet. I had not found my space yet. I was the sole songwriter on that album, and I don't know. And I was learning how to be an engineer. Like I did mix that album and produce that album. And folks should not go out and buy albums that are produced by a beginner. I don't know what people were thinking, but anyway, so I kind of separate that album in my head. It's got some nice songs on it. And when I hear it, when I listen back to it, which is infrequently, the thing I get out of that first album, the Neverworldly album, is it just transports me back to a place in my life. It was sort of pre-children. It was, we were playing a lot of, that band was gigging a lot, which was fun. I was sort of, kind of hitting this first phase of my life where I really consider myself a quote grown up. So, it's neat to sort of be a mile marker for me, but it's certainly not, I don't see it as this super important piece of work that I created.
So, at least when you look back at this album, Wanderlust, you guys were coming off Surface Serene, and that had been out a couple of years. And, when I went to see you guys live for the first time, I had heard Surface Serene, but you guys were already playing songs that would be on Wanderlust, even though the album wasn't out yet. I think our mutual friend Mike Phillips calls it the first time I saw you, the worst sounding Little Atlas gig ever. It was.
I remember that gig. I remember that gig. You were there.
I was.
Yes, Mike Phillips was there. There was the poor band that drove from Atlanta, right? Am I remembering that also?
Yeah, there was a band from Atlanta. I couldn't remember the name of the band, but yeah, I was trying to think of that.
The PA was awful. There was a huge plate glass window behind. Oh yeah, I don't remember every single gig. I sure remember that one. But that one actually lives in a little bit of the Little Atlas Museum in my head as worth sounding Little Atlas gig. Yeah.
I can't remember much about the other band, but one thing I remembered from that was, I heard some of the songs that I had heard off Surface Serene, some of the ones I enjoyed there. And I remember you guys did some Pink Floyd covers from Dark Side, I believe. And then I think maybe you did Firth of Fifth from Genesis at that gig. And one thing that I remember, I'm pretty sure you guys played the Ballad of Eddie Wanderlust, maybe The Prisoner and Home also. Mm. When did these songs that would come on to Wanderlust, when did they really start to form? Were you still workshopping them at the time? Were some of them leftovers from Surface Serene that didn't quite fit in, or tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was really an interesting time. So there's just an interesting parallel process. So Surface Serene got released. We were working on Surface Serene basically, and the drummer, the guitar player had already left. We'd been working on some of the songs. The guitar player had left. We'd gotten Roy in the band, and then the drummer left after recording his tracks. And then we wrote one more song after when Diego came aboard, which was Faceless. And so we put that on the album because he killed it. Oh, Ricardo's here. Ricardo's in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Now you're going to correct all my wrong information. I'm talking about the album.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Steve.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too. Long time to see.
I know. It has been. It has been. We were just reminiscing. I was talking about how the time between Surface Serene and Wanderlust. So we had, and our drummer had left, and Diego came in to drum, and he drummed the track. And we released that album, and then we started with Diego just writing new songs. And
correct.
It was a super important change for the band because with Surface Serene, I basically brought the songs to the band almost completely like sketched out, and we arranged them. With Wanderlust, we all wrote together. And that's why the two albums sound different. That's why if you heard us live, the finished products evolved because we were playing them and playing them and playing them and tweaking them and tweaking them. Mm-hmm. But that is the only album I've ever done, and it's really like special to me, where we played those songs out a lot before we ever went into the studio to record them. And I think that's why that album sounds like it does. I mean, that album sounds like four guys in a room playing the songs. There's some production touches here and there, mm-hmm. but the core of what that sound is, and that's because we were all in the space together, putting our heads together. Rick would be like, "How about this?" and Roy would be, "How about this?" and Diego would be like, "Play." And just different ideas. And we had rules like everybody, if you had an idea, we had to try it. And there's a lot of bad ideas.
How do you guys write together for this album? Did you come in with ideas and then play them for each other and then work on it from there? Was it jam sessions? Was it a combination of things?
a combination, I think. With of course, we have ideas at home. Have this riff, da da da, and then we start, building everything from there. You know, most of the time.
Yep.
Sometimes maybe Steve has a full song, and then we start to deconstruct the song.
Nope.
No,
This is
no,
good.
no, no. Let's do it this way.
Yeah.
And Wanderlust, you can feel that it's a little bit. Steve says it sounds like a live album, but it's a little bit crazier than the other than Surface Serene. You know, more I don't know. Yeah, I think the word is live. It's very it's like a live album. Yeah.
Yep.
With Wanderlust chosen as the name of the album, was there a primary idea or theme to the album that you had in mind going in, or was this something that evolved, or was it just you liked the word?
I think I like the word. I don't. Yeah. It was not. There was not it wasn't a concept album. It was just songs that were that we were doing at the time. There was no intentional lyrical thing to hold it all together. So it was taken from the Ballad of Eddie Wanderlust. But the idea of Wanderlust is like you never get, it's the journey, it's not the destination.
Right.
You're always looking, I mean, that was really describing where we were at that time too. So it wasn't just like the sound of the words. It reflected something important, I think.
Speaking of where you were at the time, what were you listening to? What kind of music were you into? What kind of things were you reading? What was seeping into your writing at that time?
Wow. I have to think back to mid 2000, like 2005. I was for sure listening to Porcupine Tree, and I was listening to Spock's Beard, and I was listening to Ekelin. And then on the non-progressive rock side, I was listening to Jeff Buckley and Radiohead. That's my recollection. How about you, Rik?
Well, Steve, you have a very good memory, dude. I don't remember anything. But
I remember Rik showed me Transatlantic. Rik, we listened to that in my driveway once together.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were very influenced by those new progressive bands by the moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, Porcupine Tree and we listen a lot of we revisit a lot of Genesis for sure.
Yep. Yeah, we all loved it. We all loved it.
And of course, Rush. Always it's always that influence. You have that thing in your DNA. So
yeah. And they'd sit there, Diego, Roy, and Ricardo would sit there and they'd break into a Rush thing. And I'm just like waiting for the keyboard breakers. I just sit there because I couldn't sing it. I couldn't, not much to play there. But they were killing the Rush stuff.
Roy was discovering Porcupine Tree, and Roy was he was a super Steve Howe fan, so you can feel a lot of that influence in that album and the guitar work. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're talking about here this album, Steve Katsikas on vocals and keyboards. Rik, you were the bass player here. Diego Procovi on drums and percussion, and the late great Roy Stratman on acoustic and electric guitars. I was just listening to the album before we got on this call, and I think that was my main note was here's another Rush sounding part. Here's another Rush sounding part, and it was really interesting. Now looking back at this album 15 years later, I'm still finding things that I didn't notice on first listen, which I think is the hallmark of a great album. When you look back at this album, you guys produced this yourselves. Was that an artistic choice? Was it a financial choice? Was it a combination of things?
I don't think it ever occurred to us when we had a real engineer and producer in the band to think outside. I don't think we ever had a conversation about like, should somebody else mix this or should somebody else produce it? Did we, Rik? I think it was.
No, we were pretty, in that track from the beginning. Yeah.
And nobody knew the material like you guys and how you wanted it to sound anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And we were like in 2005 maybe. It's a good time when just for the technology to of course you have ADATs and that kind of stuff way before that, but you know, Pro Tools was better, and we start buying preamps and microphones. Look, Steve has a, you know, has been collecting gear.
Collecting, yeah.
So yeah. We were like prepared for that.
Okay. When did you go into the studio for the first time? What was the first thing you worked on in this album? Do you remember?
Drums, definitely.
I mean, yeah, our workflow was one because these songs were cooked. They were cooked. They were done.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were arranged and ready to go. And so we always started with drums, but I think the way we recorded it, correct me if I'm wrong, Rik, is we were all in the room, but the only thing that was being actually recorded for keeper was the drums. If I made a mistake or Rik made a mistake, it didn't matter. And then we would come back and add the tracks if needed after that. Spend time getting the right tones and everything. And we did not use like a click or anything, as I recall, for this album, right?
Yeah, we not for all the tracks, but yes, we used click tracks for some of the tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, and so sometimes like there are songs that just the click just felt a little too like it was. It wasn't this because we were playing live, and then we tried to do it to a click. It was like that's not how we sound, and so like screw it, like threw the click out.
Actually, let me check the songs for.
Oh, he's got it. He's got the source tracks. Rik is like the librarian. He's got like
no. I'm checking out the album, no the session. I have the session.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, but if you were to call him and say, do you have like that backing vocal track from like that third song on that album in 2003? Rik's like, yeah, I got that.
Yeah. I have everything, of course. No, yeah, so this is right. I think we didn't use click track for this one.
I think we didn't.
Maybe for On and On. Maybe. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Right? Maybe. Rights. Maybe, but definitely not for the ballad. Definitely not for Higher. For the Prisoner.
No, and
you can feel that we're free. You know, we're free.
Like there's this like flow to this. Like you just don't hear in a lot of albums.
Right. So. You said you had these things fully formed. Were there any last minute inspirations that made you change anything, or you just, hey, we know our stuff, we're going in, we're recording it, we're done?
I think the last song on the album was a last minute addition. I think
Mirror of Life.
I can't remember. I may be misremembering, but that struck me as maybe one that
and we put we put a cuatro in 2 songs at the end. That's a folkloric instrument from Venezuela. Yes, it was a last decision as well. I don't know what else. And what about the violin, Steve, with Bill? When we put the
yeah, that was on Mirror of Life. So Bill from Frog Cafe.
Exactly. That's the last song, yeah.
That was the last one. So that was kind of a later decision, a 7th song on the album.
Yeah. And ended up being the shortest song on the album, I believe. So
still pretty long, but yeah.
Yeah. It's not exactly a pop song, but you know.
Although of all the songs, it probably has the most of that sort of pop sensibility to it, and it's more in the box compared to the rest of the songs that are a little more adventurous, maybe.
You've kind of already answered this, but I wanted to ask specifically about your approach to instrumental passages. Is this something that is just in the band's DNA? Does it come from jamming? Does it come from writing and saying, okay, we need an instrumental passage here? How do you approach solos?
Jamming, I think. Like, we had there are sections where there's jamming and there's sections where there's solos that are a little bit different. So if you think about the break on and on, like that's like, I'm really proud of that. That's a really cool like interplay, like the 3 of us, the notes that we're playing, the way that they're kind of different and they hold together and stuff, and the time signature that Diego, the group, like there's a groove behind there that is unexpected. Like that was from jamming. Yeah. And I think most of it was like in the room, just trying stuff. And then I remember spending a lot of time on transitions. Like how do we go right? how do we get from here to here?
How we go back to the
How do we get back
to the leitmotifs, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, get back from point A to point B is always an issue.
And it always had to make sense. That was like a rule. We couldn't just like do something, you know, and we took our time with it. And I think that there were a lot of just efforts and time spent doing that. We would have rehearsals. I remember having rehearsals where we'd work on one song and really focus on transitions. Like we weren't rehearsing up song to play live when we were in that mode. Is that how you remember it, Rik?
Yeah. I miss that thing that I mean, it's very hard work when you do that way, because you know we are in a room trying to figure out to go from point A to B, etc. And it's very time consuming. But when we all agree for something, it was very, very, very cool. And sometimes I remember we felt that, you know, very, very euphoric, you know. Man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
For the next albums, for example, for Hollow, we did that not in all the songs, and for Automatic Day, we composed you know, we have everything was more arranged by each member. No, I have this song, this is the part. Maybe, of course, we collaborate, but you know, what's different the process?
Yeah, it was
for Wanderlust it was like a, you know, it was an interaction all the time.
And it was special. Like I've been in a lot of bands and played with a lot of musicians, and I have never had that experience of working that every single person in the band is willing to spend whatever it takes in the studio together democratically for the music. Like it's not happened since for me. I've been in some good bands. Rik's been in some great bands. It was just special, and it was like we were all on the same. We didn't have the same ideas, and we didn't always like each other's ideas, but we were on the same page that we were working on something special, and we were willing to just break it down and just make everything work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I took that away from your live shows too. It sounded very organic to me when those songs were played live, and I think you introduced them as new songs at the time, and it seemed like you guys had been playing them for years. So let me ask you about Xavier Cortez did the artwork for this album, this artwork behind me. Very dramatic, the green handprint with the eyeball in the middle. Where did that come from?
He had sent me like a page of just thumbnails of his work.
He did the previous album as well.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So we were familiar with his work. We knew him personally. He was associated with an art gallery that often had music that we would often play called the Wallflower Gallery. It's not around anymore. I don't know if you ever went there when we played at that place, but that's where we met him. And so he sent this like thumbnails, and I'm just like, that's really cool. And you know, we like the idea of being able to use original art as opposed to graphics. I think the artwork fits.
Yeah, it's very striking. Do you guys have a favorite track from this album? I mean, I know it's like picking your favorite kid, but you know.
Boy,
I like Eddie, you know, the ballad for Eddie Wanderlust.
Yeah, I like Eddie a lot. It's got.
But the Prisoner is my favorite, of course.
Prisoner is really cool. It just
it's super fun to play.
It was like being on a ride at a theme park to play that, because it was just like, you know, it would take you to these places, and I'm really, you know, really proud of the lyrics on that song. It tells. I'm not a storyteller with my lyrics, but that tells a story. That's like that could be a, you know, made for a movie or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I thought when I first heard it. It was that would make for an interesting film.
Do you remember, Steve, what was the inspiration from The Prisoner?
It had to do with like I think the Bush presidency, right? And it was
no.
No, what was it? Tell me. You remember?
I told you about a book. There's a a Venezuelan writer. He writes like this dark humor. And I told you about that this tale that he wrote that is this guy that was trying to do transcendental meditation, trying to be outside of his body. Remember?
Yeah.
And the whole he tries and like a, hi Joanna.
Hi Ricardo, so happy to see you. Hey Michael, how are you?
Good.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
All right.
And then this guy finally he has out of his body moment, and he can see his body in the bed, and he said, okay, finally, I'm gonna travel the war, etc. And okay, and he travels the war, and when he comes back to his room, the body wasn't there. His body wasn't there.
Yep.
You remember, Steve? I told you.
I do.
I mean,
yeah.
You wrote The Prisoner inspired of that. It doesn't have anything, maybe nothing, in common, but I remember that was your inspiration.
Yeah, I remember just being really, upset about sort of the authoritarian sorts of changes that I was seeing around me politically. And so that was sort of like people kicking in your door and like going to that kind of society and whatnot. And then Rik's story. Yeah, thank you, Rik. I'd forgotten about that. See, that's why we got to celebrate these things every 15 years. We our memories get bad. We have to remember.
Yeah, I was gonna go track by track, but we kind of jumped in and out. And I was gonna ask you who was the prisoner, in your mind. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, fiction.
You guys started the album with a little clip from Wizard of Oz that's all kind of like there's effects on it and everything. How did you arrive at that decision?
Yeah, so it's a vocoder, which uses sort of spoken or sung sounds to provide the features that create synthesis. That's a probably bad description of it, but that's the effect, is using a vocoder. And it was not an immediate, like we weren't playing the song and using that as an intro until the album. It was sort of like a production time idea. And I think I had watched The Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy kind of has Wanderlust, traveling around, but it's really the wizard himself who has Wanderlust. And I was just kind of thinking that whole film and everything was cool, but the idea of, what she says is there's no place like home, basically is what she says. But the idea that you can sort of wander and look and the things that are all out there, that keep you going, are not necessarily what you need. You need to know where your home is. Anyway, that I thought that was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then The Wizard of Oz has been co-opted by Pink Floyd and some other sorts of things that has a little bit of a legendary status to it.
It's a little bit of why I asked you about the theme earlier, because there's also a song called Home and your lyrics about being far from home, far from my home, and that kind of thing. So I just wondered if there was sort of some recurring, not necessarily concept album type thing going on, but maybe some lyrical themes that were kind of on your mind at the time.
I would say so.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier before we get there, I want to ask you about the a cappella section in Weariness Rides. How did that come about?
What's that, Rik?
Your idea, of course.
Yeah. So how did I do that? I recall looping the section and then just kind of like la 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 la, kind of getting just la-laing my way through it. And once I kind of found melody one, I wrote lyrics to it. And then I went and found counterpoint melody while that was playing and just looped it. And I was kind of like looking for the melody. And then I did the same thing with 3. And then I was like, holy crap, how do I get out of this? And then sort of had the 3 voices that were sort of doing this kind of thing kind of come together and sing the last part together. So that's where the tools of the studio are really helpful, because unless you're like listening to what you did
potential retirement income in 30 seconds.
Sorry.
No, I could use some retirement income too. Yep.
The opening lyric is fantastic in that song. Weariness rides on the backs of our serious sides. Do you remember where you came up with that?
Mm-mm. No, but that's a pretty, like, I'm enamored with that kind of rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
Of where like there's not a lot of music kind of has an iambic pentameter sort of a rhyme where like da 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 da, like the things are at the end of the line are rhyming, and I like weariness, serious, I like the double rhyme in that, like rides, sides, serious. I like playing with the sounds of words. Still do that. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a thing I do.
The track order, what went into selecting which song would go where?
That's a very very democratic decision as well, and sometimes very one of the few fights we have always in all the albums.
Yeah, especially opening track. We're like it gets less intense after that, but like what's going to be the opening track? And I think so. Here's my memory. Check me if I'm wrong, Rick. But I think the reason that we put Eddie Wanderlust first. By the way, is that the first song?
Yes.
It is. Check it. All right. I think the reason we put that first is we said, like, everything that's going to happen in the album, like that's setting the stage for it. So the kinds of things we do with that song.
So, the whole intro with the Wizard of Oz intro and everything was perfect for that.
Yeah.
For the start of the album. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it made a lot of sense to close the album on the song that seemed the least connected stylistically to the rest of the songs.
Okay. You mentioned Bill. How do you say his name? Ayasi on violin and Mirror of Life. Was that just an idea? You like to have some violin here, or was there just something missing? And how did that decision arrive?
So we definitely we didn't like the sounds of like synthesized violin. And we were pretty connected to that band. We had been to New York, got to hang out with those guys. We were on the same label for a period of time. Actually, we were on the same label twice, which is an interesting story. So I really like those guys. And I don't remember if we all talked about it, if I had the idea or someone else did. We knew Bill had a studio. Or at least had access to Andy's studio, Andy Sussman. And they just kind of kicked it out really quick. And then on their next album, I got to go and add a synthesizer piece on one of their songs.
Were there, you mentioned that Mirror of Life was a late addition. Were there other songs that could have been included on Wanderlust, but maybe weren't quite ready yet or weren't up to the quality level you wanted?
I don't think so. Do you think, was there anything else we were playing at that time that we held off on, or we didn't put on the album before the Surface Arena album? I don't.
What about the Clock Restore? That was left over of Hollow, or this one,
Yeah, I think that was initially off the Surface. That was written around the Surface Serene time. So that never made it to a Little Atlas album. That actually shipped on my solo album from last year. Yeah. The old songs never die. They're just in strange places.
How does this album hold up for you after 15 years? Is this still something you seem very excited about it still? It doesn't seem like one of those that you look back and you cringe and you go, what were we thinking back then?
No, I'm really proud of it.
Not for this one. I love this. I love this album. You have to, of course, set yourself in that moment. In that time. But for me, it sounds very, very, very good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that album, Hollow and Automatic Day, I'm just incredibly proud of those albums. I love everything about those albums. I don't go back and say, like anywhere on any of those albums. And Surface Serene, which is really our first Little Atlas album together, has a lot of really, really great pieces and parts. And we were learning how to play with each other, and
Mm-hmm.
I think Roy he was developing his confidence. He was a great player even then, but he was developing his confidence on what he could bring to the band, and that was much more fully realized when we got to Wanderlust.
Yeah.
Well, since I have the free version of Zoom, we're going to get kicked off soon. So I wanted to ask you guys, is there anything else that you remember about writing, recording, playing these songs live that you would kind of want fans to take away from, this album 15 years later?
I mean, I remember performing the songs at Rites of Spring at that festival in Pennsylvania. That was an incredible moment for this band, like the pinnacle, perhaps, moment for the band, because we had been toiling away in a local music scene, not knowing that there was this broader thing going on, and then to sort of get connected to it and have an opportunity to share our music with a wide audience was great. I missed the live gigs that we played around the time of that album. We were gigging a lot. And right in that time, we got selected by the Miami New Times as best band in Miami, which was that was awesome. And that opened some doors. And that album is blended to me with like the peak of our live playing, the hanging out. We were getting along really, really well. It was just a great time in our lives, I think.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Rik?
Yeah, no, I agree that we by that moment we were very, very focused in the band. Was our priority, in our life was our priority. We were younger, we had the time, we had maybe less responsibilities, and we were very dedicated. We were, every Wednesday we rehearse, and we had to play. We play on the weekends. We were very, very, in shape by the moment. So okay, yeah, that you can feel it in that album.
All right, Wanderlust, 15 years old. Just a tremendous record by you guys. It like you said, it does sound like a live album. It sounds like a very tight band at the height of their powers. And I really appreciate you, Steve, and you, Rik, also taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me about an album that's 15 years old and that people are still enjoying today.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a reason to go back and listen to it. I've been enjoying it over the last few days, and probably going to spend some time with the other albums too. I go through them, like I go through periods of time when I don't listen to them, and then periods of time when like they just help connect me to a younger version of myself.
And we all need that, especially this year.
Yeah, especially this year.
Exactly.